two cracking supermotos here in a straight head-to-head. Which is the better 125 for you? The answer is in this video. Right then, folks, we have a generational clash on show, live right in front of you. I spent my youth on KTMs. My son, my second son, is spending his youth on beta supermotos. His heart beats for this one. Mine used to beat for KTM, now I am a neutral observer. But of course, my son and I had to think about what I would choose for the A1 license in Austria. This license category, which is actually standard across Europe, in fact, it really is like that in the EU, gives you the chance at 16 to ride a real motorbike. You do have to get a proper license with tricky questions, but then you have the chance to ride proper motorbikes. And while these bikes share the 125 cubic centimeter class, the differences are bigger than you might think. How do we place it? On the one hand, we have a bike that is insanely cool, also insanely quick, but with a very grown-up feel. A fat handlebar, adjustable suspension, adjustable ABS. You can set the ABS to Supermoto mode. You have a trellis frame, and when you ride it, you also feel there is a bit of seat comfort and the option to cover proper distances. The bike feels harmoniously balanced. Yet here on the Supermoto track, it is still cheeky enough that you think, this is a wicked, irrational, fun machine. And it is remarkable that, for once, KTM is the more sensible choice of the two bikes. That is rare. It is usually the other way around. But here, the beta really is the more radical tool. And this 125RR has an enormous fan base. That is also because there is a 50 as well. And many teenagers start loving the beta brand as early as 15. Because the career, at least on road, can only really start with the 125s at 16. There is nothing comparable in the 50 class. And that is tricky because beta has already cultivated quite a few fans who like this radical feel inspired by enduro racing spirit, also a touch uncompromising. You have a clearly more radical riding position, so you can slide right up to the headstock if you want. Yes, but I did not do that. I slid at most to here. And when you look at it, this is what a competition Supermoto feels like. This is what a competition enduro feels like. Very Spartan. There is hardly anything on it. Very narrow, very slim. Sadly, the handlebar is very slim too. So when I look here, I have a rather meager, narrow bar. Over there, I would have a broader, beefier bar. Here, though, I have a nice little red anodized beta factory design gadget, whereas otherwise the switchgear is fairly sober. I do have, when I open this, a USB-C port and a display where, as I said, I can switch the ABS into Supermoto mode. And on the KTM, I also have a quick shifter, whereas here I have a rudimentary racing-oriented setup and equipment without mad extras. I would say the biggest difference you feel here on the track is this. We are talking tires as well. On the KTM, we have relatively inexpensive original fitment rubber, and here you have Conti Road fitted. These are high-quality, brand-new, premium class. And then in terms of seat comfort, the KTM is, of course, well, I do not know whether that is obvious to you, but this one is, of course, more comfortable. The KTM, whereas the beta is firmer, you feel a bit more directly on the beta what is happening beneath you. That means building trust in the front, and also the rear works better on the beta. On the one hand, because of the chassis geometry, on the other, because of the firmer seat. So on the beta, thanks to the tires, the chassis geometry, and that firm seat, I dared to lean a bit further and push a bit harder into the corner and also get on the throttle a touch earlier. That was the big performance and speed benefit of the beta. Whereas with the KTM, I did have the advantage that because I could set the ABS to the right mode, there were no surprises under braking. In the braking zone, it basically did not intervene at the rear. With the rear brake pedal, if you have the skill, you could even drift, but I could comfortably trail the rear brake without it interfering with the ABS control range. And I still had full braking available at the front. On the beta, it was different. If you brake in a sporty way, at some point you notice the ABS, whoops, I am approaching the grip limit, and then it reduces the brake pressure, the lever gives, and the braking performance is clearly reduced. That feels unfamiliar. It was not dangerous because there is still brake pressure, but here it is handled in a more premium way with the comprehensive ABS package that is fitted. I have to say, for the seating position for me as an adult at 1.85 meters, I basically felt at home on both bikes. The KTM is certainly more suitable for long distances because of how the seat is shaped and how you sit in it. Even so, as a fully grown person, you feel comfortable here, and that is also the big strength of both supermotos. In Central Europe, our youngsters are sometimes quite tall lads and lasses, and in other categories within the 125 class, the big 180 bruisers can look a bit out of place. That is not the case on either of these bikes. both do not feel out of place, even with tall lads and lasses on board. As for the engine, they both have comparable power. In the saddle, it is the case that up top, you have the better feel for the ideal shift point. It tapers off smoothly at the top. But you are also dependent on that feel because the display is very Spartan. I could not find any truly valuable information on the spot here, neither the gear nor a rev counter, so I have no information here. Therefore, they had to make sure you can feel when you need to shift, and you simply do not know which gear you are in. But surprisingly, thanks to the natural and harmonious engine character, you manage just fine. Whereas on the KTM, you have a full display. You can see which gear you are in, you have your rev counter. But when you feel at the top that it is really about to come on song, really get exciting, suddenly the rev limiter is there. So up at the very top of the rev range, the feel for when the optimal shift point is does not come across as smoothly as on the beta, but you do get it served up on the display here. Yes, this one, when I look at it now, does look flashier, more sportier. But when I sit in it like this, I get the sense it belongs to a higher class. Tidier, a higher quality display, a USB socket here. It feels like a slightly more expensive product. But as you know, in racing, it is not about tinsel. It is about raw performance. And the beta embodies that uncompromising attitude more strongly. So this time, it is a very unusual picture for KTM. Normally, KTM is the unreasonable one. Here it is the other way around. It is presumably the slightly less sensible choice, the one that comes across flashier, more aggressive, more Spartan, with a leaner spec. But I think it makes up for that with an overall impression configured uncompromisingly for performance, whereas in terms of performance, the KTM feels about 2% behind, yet clearly ahead on comfort and everyday features. Therefore, the KTM is probably the right choice for a broader audience, a wider target group. But I know I was young once too, and when you look at it and let the styling sink in, this one is more radical, cooler, wilder. And that will probably be more desirable for some of you. So I like that the two machines are positioned differently. And yes, now I have to make sure I bring this one home safely because this is actually the very motorbike my son will get as soon as he has a license. And with this one, we have also made a few other videos. So subscribe to the channel and have a look below. What are others saying? What do the owners of the two bikes say? What are the youngsters writing here in the comments? Which is the better brand, Fadi, KTM or Beta? Post away below. Which is number one or more expensive? We have made further videos as well. If you subscribe to the channel, you will not miss anything. Enjoy 1000 PS TV. See you soon. Ciao.